Okay, some numbers, crunch some numbers. As I said, Japan is just very amazing here because they are really down at the bottom of the list. It's a 724% increase in the compound annual growth ratio for the growth of SRI assets investment, but it comes from a very, very low base. And Australia, actually, and New Zealand, I think they have 50% of the funds investing in those funds having a sustainability checklist, and they're doing good. And all these figures, show that some of the companies, some of the countries are catching up. Hong Kong has not catched up with this game. We talk to investors often. They don't ask us these questions from the local funds. I trust that I have got a few occasions talking to investors, and one of them is actually Aberdeen Fund, which is actually owning 10% of the share in Hang Lung, and the other is a European fund, and they come to us to visit us. But it's quite disappointing that Hong Kong setup funds or Asia setup region funds, they have not been talking to us and asked about our sustainability performance. The key trends of sustainability. I just want to give some buzzword during this session as well. It's shifting of the power to the consumers. So apart from the internal stakeholders we are talking about, we have to engage with the external stakeholders to ensure that your reputation is out there, that you are doing the best in class out of the model you are running, and to convince them this company is sustainable. And then there are emerging common goals like the United Nations SDG. It could be quite macro, but I have to say that we have to watch out on these developments with Trump withdrawing from the Paris Agreement, and with China sticking his neck out about this convention, but at the same time investing in the South African countries as well for coal. So it's quite a dilemma. But anyway, these are things that that you have to watch out from the macro environment and the macro stage, international stage. And then there's increasing intergovernmental efforts. I hope that this increasing intergovernmental efforts actually are genuine efforts into enhancing sustainability, build corporate governance, reducing the social impacts to the organization, and not just ticking the box. And we all know that there's a growing strain on natural resources. I've always recently complained about the hot weather in Hong Kong, and it's always raining. I don't know what had happened. It's always the alarm saying that the temperature has gone up to such a level that is hazardous to your health. And these are the things happening in my own city and my own country. And I travel very often to China as well, and my flights are always delayed, not just by the aviation because of some practical drills, military drills out there, but because of smog. So these are things that are happening. As said, every company, including us, need to catch up with the trend, this trend of sustainability now. Sometimes there is no next time, it's now or never. That's definitely not from Jonathan's age, Elvis Presley's quote. Anyway, as I said, I'm here to learn and share. I'm not here to boast about what our company has done in the past few years. I'm going to share all these practical experiences with you. Actually, we started about 5 years ago, so not long ago. Before that, we have been doing sustainability in a very unsystematical way, apart from attaining LEED certification. That is the truth of it. In the last 5 years, we managed to, have our reporting praised by regional assessor. And I remember that was like 2 or 3 years ago, we participated in a not a competition, but just in an assessment with ASRA in Singapore. And they did not announce the results until you are there. And I thought, right, Jonathan and I said, why not going there? So we joined the occasion. and that was held in the British Embassy. It's not about how good you have been doing on the sustainability front. It's about reporting. It's about transparency. And we have got the grand award on that day. I have to tell you, this is the second most important occasion in my life other than giving birth to my kid. It was a moment that I thought I've done something right. And doing this sustainability mission here actually demands a lot of resources. I could tell you that I've been in rooms arguing with my division heads about why they have to do sustainability. They will say that, I have better things to do, I'm very busy, there are compliance already there, I don't have to do better. And you ask for data, they don't give you data. You ask for verification of data, they say, I've already given you the data. So it was like talking to a wall, sounds like a broken record, but that's how you do sustainability because it's not reflecting in the numbers. You talk about energy saving, they do a baseline case for you, and then you check on the technical as to how you reach that baseline level as to whether there's a reduction in the energy level. They say, I've already done it. It's already past tense. So you could not even check on the mechanism that has been checking on the reduction of energy, and hence, you just have to convince the accreditation organization saying that we could do it better next time. So those are the challenges that are facing, within the organization about how you manage sustainability. And I am actually quite lucky in that sense because, as I told you before, my past life actually, I do hold on to my human resources role. And I know nothing about sustainability to start off with. And hence I have to do harder. And I read all these requirements, and you have to fill in all these boxes when you are doing the DJSI questionnaire. And for those gaps that I could not do, I asked myself, can I do it? One of the gaps I can identify at that time is actually they say that for corporate governance, if you have to ensure that your staff have sustainability in mind, you have to build in an KPI, a key performance indicator, on the appraisal sheet to ensure that you are talking about the same thing, you have the same directions, you have got a quantifiable for your staff. The next question is, they say there's a percentage to it, and how much of your reward is tied to that sustainability key performance indicator. So without hesitation, in that year, I just built that KPI into the appraisal sheet. Then you have to talk to your managers about what to write there, and have to ensure that they understand what their roles are. For HR it's easy because, it's my own division, and I know that, the well-being of staff, how to groom our staff are very important elements. Training hours, not just training hours, not just a quantifiable, but what you are training them up for. And you have to do questionnaires for the training requirements as well with the division heads and ensure that there are deliverables. So that's on the human resources side. On the corporate governance side, I have a hurdle. I share with Omar just now because we are a family-owned business here. And then they ask for questions that perhaps in a family business you could not deliver to the expectation of the requirement of DJSI. So you have to ask yourself, of course you feel, wow, disappointed at the beginning, but then you're asking yourself as to why you're doing this job. I trust that sometimes it's not about whether you're fulfilling those requirements in the DJSI form. It's about management. It's about transparency. It's about fairness. It's about how your management runs your business. So perhaps some of our independent directors, they're over 9 years with the organization. But these are professionals. They are experts in their respective fields. I've seen them in action in our board meetings. So I know that we must be doing it right. Talking about board meetings, actually, in my past life as a general counsel, I have to do 6 board meetings in a year, 4 audit committee meetings. Total is about 10 board meetings and committee meetings and 2 board trips. So then, stepping back, I'm happy because in my role as a general counsel and as a company secretary, I think that I've discharged my fiduciary duty being a company secretary, and my board members, they are very receptive and they want to know about the corporate governance trend as well. There has been training provided to them. They are catching up with all these corporate governance code, and there's very good chemistry in the boardroom. They don't talk about, the operational level stuff, but they do talk about the RMB depreciation, which may affect the company. So these are the expert areas they talk about the things happening in China, anti-corruption. So how does the company operate to ensure that you can fight against all these corruption practices? We are not in the DJSI yet, the index yet. We are close because we see the marks. But we are called the Industry Mover 2017. So, at least we are improving to such an extent with a great leap that DJSI think that, they should, give us some recognition. Right, putting sustainability into practice. As I told you, back then, in around a decade ago, sustainability is actually not managed in a very systematical way, apart from, getting the LEED certification. Operations were characterized by activities rather than by processes. People come, people may go. Systems are in place. Once you set the framework right, you have to ensure you have to enhance the framework, and then it's up to date. Very importantly, I trust that there are 2 elements in the organization that has to be, serve the monitoring function. The first is the internal audit department. And the second thing is whether your company has a risk management framework to ensure that they are watching out all these risks that are emerging beyond your expectation. It's a changing world. Don't think it worked, so it works. It's a moving target. It's a never-ending journey. There are always gaps. There's no 100 percentile. So that's why you have to ensure that you are reviewing the processes in intervals with the right people. Again, not just checking the boxes internally. Goals and plans were vaguely defined. I like an interview, with one of my idol called Anna Wintour. She said, when you run a company or how you run your team, actually, she doesn't think of self as the boss. As a management, you have to give directions, marching orders. Those marching orders are reached after discussions. But once you have reached such a conclusion, the whole team has to march in the same direction. In many of the circumstances, actually, there's a flaw to this exercise. Is that communication is not clear enough for your staff to follow your direction. So don't hesitate to remind your staff again and try to go deep down there, talk to your staff as to whether they understand your direction or not. In sustainability, it's just the same. As I said, with all this energy saving, if you check last minute before you do your report, you're done. You can never selfish the situation. You have to check it in intervals. So before you get your numbers by the end of the year, you have to ensure actually you get the numbers in every quarter. So if you find that everything is just not right, you just have to sound the alarming bell and talk to the relevant person with the relevant expertise. And if necessary, to talk to the management. Because at the end of the day, we, writing the report, has this challenge. Writing this report, even with intangibles, actually you need to get verification. And for all these accreditation, they look at the documentation. So if you cannot produce the documentation, they will challenge you. They may pass you for this year, but at the end of the day, they will say that, sorry, I don't think I can sign on it. Right. Anyone read Chinese here? No. Anyway, long and short of it, I've discussed this slide with Jonathan. And I said, why starting on the right-hand side first? Because he says, Chinese writing is on the right-hand side first. But anyway, we will read from our right-hand side, which is your left-hand side. So if you have cultivate oneself, you can easily harmonize your family, and the country will be well-governed, and you will achieve your long-lasting goals and have a stable country. That's what's written there in Chinese. It's a Confucianist saying. Applying this to a commercial organization, a corporate, actually with a sound corporate governance, and internally, your family, you have a harmonic and loyal workforce, you could build a workforce which will positively impact the environment and the society, and hence your corporate will be sustainable. As I said, I could not do my job together with Jonathan, just by the two of us. Actually, there's a tone from the top. And there's a steering committee comprising with all the management of our company, about 12 of them, from different functions, in order to make this succeed. I trust that we have got steering committee for like 2 times a year, constant emails. Down there, the directors were given, and we work with the managers on those levels to ensure that they deliver. It is a strategic change for the organization rather than an operational change. I have to share with you, and I have to admit that, we have been doing better in Hong Kong than in mainland China. In the last 5 years, we managed to convince our colleagues in Hong Kong. But I don't think that we are doing a good job yet in China. If you ask any of our management staff in China, in the mainland, as to what sustainability is, I don't think that they could give you a straightforward answer, or be supportive, or know exactly what their role is. It involves every department, and just can't do it without the management support. As said, I'm lucky. It requires the sharing of information, which we're not used to be shared. It's a lot of checking of information of your colleagues. They would feel that they are being challenged. That's human nature. Are you challenging me? Why do you want these data? I've already, furnished the data to you. It's confidential. I'll have to ask my boss first. I trust that, among this audience here, you may have shared the same feeling. This is the structure I'm talking about. The board of directors, they are supportive. The chief executive officer, CEO of Cathay Pacific, of course, he knows that, how his industry has been doing, to the environment as well, and they have to explain to external stakeholders. And the executive director is Adriel Chan. Young ones like Jonathan, they know what sustainability is. And the Sustainability Steering Committee comprised of all senior management of our company. And you can see that we have to engage the business functions, not just one function, because you have to make the functions talk together and work together. Like, take for example, I'm now in the leasing and management role. The technical people are monitoring the energy efficiency. They need to change a chiller. It's going to eat into my capex, the capital expenditure. And then I tell them what's the return period, what's the, the energy level that could be saved, within this, with this exercise, and is it worthwhile to do it? I count my numbers. I have to work on my budget to see how I could deliver somewhere else. Employees, as I said, happy employees make them deliver. Have the message clear to all staff. Even frontline staff can make your company sustainable. As I told you, in a conventional business, we talk about customer service because we have malls, mega-sized malls in the China region. You walk in those malls, you got lost. You could not even find your own car. So apart from the digital, mechanism that we built in to provide more customer service, we have to provide, the smiley faces as well. And of course, we have to train our staff to protect our assets because when you run malls in China, the one big challenge that you face in terms of service delivery is maintenance. My chairman always talked to me and said, in different occasions, actually, he made the same speech and said, right, we built our malls. Our malls is like Fan Bing Bing. Or when he's talking to, the Caucasian, crowd, he'll say that, actually, I'm a Brad Pitt. But I always want to ask my chairman, do you think that it's easy to be a Brad Pitt forever or Fan Bing Bing forever? No. You have to have certain maintenance costs. And that's one thing that we have to improve as well. Because in China, as I told you, in the second and third tier cities, experts are not readily available. Even if you want to ship someone from Shanghai or even Hong Kong there, they don't want to leave their family. After they want to leave their family, they decided to leave their family for a few years. They want to change to somewhere else because of what? You've written that word in the slide as well, pollution. I've got resignations in our organizations because they think that pollution is a very big element, especially when they have given birth to kids. That's the time they resign. So as I said, we do it right. We want to be an employer of choice. So as long as they work with the company, they stay happy. The green operation about maintenance, about take for example, the detergent you use, about the tissues you're using, recycled paper, do have a system for that. Track the usage. That's engaging the central purchasing department as well. And then even for air flights. Destination to destination, you have got the numbers. How do you translate that into carbon emission? You need to do some work. Sustainable buildings, I think we are actually doing very good on that front, since 1990. Sound governance, as I said, I trust that the family shares the same corporate, governance value with all the employees. He wants to ensure that the estate will last. We want to ensure that we could work for this company, like in our career life. Community integration. Mega-sized malls in a region. People talk about you. There are tenants in there. You want to make your tenants thrive. You don't want to kill your tenants. And then you have to ensure that the tenants are engaging the community, that they were providing the services and the products. This, you have to assist your tenant out into doing tenant collaboration as well, engaging the community. Take for example, we do works like, we have a lot of architects in our organization. So in Hong Kong, we have a tour with the students, just to introduce to them about the architectural design in Hong Kong. And we are doing a lot in China as well, like we support the kids there, and we think of which universities we could have further collaborations. Actually, those will be the workforce which could serve our organization. So it's a two-way situation. Business integrity. Oh, I think I'm running out of time. Anyway, I will share this story with you. When I first joined the organization, I could remember I was asked by the IA, Internal Audit Department, to help in an investigation of our senior managers running the office operation in China. The allegation is that she and her team has actually pocketed, commission, fraudulent commission, pretending that the tenants would like to engage all these agencies to negotiate leases with Hang Lung as a landlord. Actually, those agents never exist. But they are stupid enough. One of them, the tenant, is actually a very renowned firm in the States. So I was actually very brave enough to pick up the phone and ask the managing partner. And I said, have you ever been engaging with this agent before? The answer is, of course not. And then there are a few retailers as well in our offices, buildings, and actually they are very renowned retailers, luxury brands. And the answer is still no. So we reported the case to the Security Bureau. Reporting cases to the Security Bureau actually takes a lot of efforts as well. Unless they think that your case is of certain significance to building the citizenship of, the Shanghai city. Actually, they may not cater for your case unless you have got very strong evidence. But of course, we are not police here, right? So we could just tell them about what we have on hand. But they are very, very nice. They took our case. So on that day, we have to execute this operation. So I was talking to the senior manager in her office. And she was playing with her pencil, talking to me without looking into my eyes. And I said, Helen, if you have not done it, just go with the officer and things will pan out smoothly. And so she went with the officer. I went to her office, I took her bag. I still remember it's an Hermes bag. And it's got loads and piles of RMB in there. $100 note, RMB, the biggest note is $100. And off she went. Off she went to the police station. Off she went to the States, absconded. Because she's holding to an American citizenship. The other two in that team actually were sentenced to 10 years imprisonment and 8 years in imprisonment. I told you this story. You are not the first one, within, outside the organization who knows about this. We are not fearful to tell how we have tried to fight corruption within our organization. There are tough decisions for your organizations to make. Our organizations say we have to do it right. If we let those things happen in our organization, then everybody will be doing the same. So we make it very loud. I trust that what I'm telling you here, apart from the audience that I've spoken different forums, actually I told these stories in our sustainability report, I think 2013 or 14. We make our cases very loud. And at that time, I still remember, actually I was no longer in Shanghai at that time, and then one of our staff called back and said, there is this wife and this kid and the mother as well begging us to talk to the police to mitigate the sentence or mitigate the charges, and they would just pay everything back. And then in China, you'll be amazed. Actually, there's a regulation there saying that if you return your money, then your sentence will be less. I don't know how that works, but it's the fact, all right? I read that law because I don't believe it. And I want to share about different mentalities again. I'm not saying that, of course I show empathy, all right? But when it comes to corporate decision, you just have to do it right. So, of course, we will not entertain, such requests, because otherwise, people think that they could follow. But my PRC colleague actually, at that point in time, thought that our decision is a little bit ruthless. Hindsight, I trust that if you have not done things right, you just have accepted, consequence thereof. Is this what we have to, taught our kids as well? So for corporate, organizations, it's just the same thing. Otherwise, your stakeholders will not trust you in the long run. And as I said, we've got Emily, that figure, engaging the frontliners about, you should dress up and be, have a very positive attitude towards your work. We do have television anchors, doing, promotions for us to talk about integrity. First year, I have to tell you my failure. I got a lawyer and to talk about integrity in front of our staff, and they fall asleep. So the second year, I thought, right, I have to change it. And of course, she's a television anchor, and then she has worked with the independent, corruption, Commission Against Corruption. So she is fit for the role. So we got her. We got her into 8 cities talking about integrity to raise the internal awareness. And people love her. And they know what we are talking about. Sometimes it's all about engagement. As said, honesty is a big thing in our organization. Risk management, when our business, half of which now, and is going to be over 50%, will be in the mainland in the future. You have to ensure you follow the country's principle as well. Presidency says corruption has to stop. On the corporate level, we say the same, and even with more rigid measures. So we publicly disclose all these severe cases of, in the sense that if there's a breach in our annual sustainability report. Sustainable workforce. I will not go into detail as to how happy we are as a workforce. And we rely on our people to build our business. This corporate identity, that, this we do it right motto, this DNA within us. It determines productivity. It's about efficiency. The return which could not be measured. I don't think anyone can measure the performance of a company as to how much they are bringing to the organization. Those are the intangibles that sustainability is looking for. Those are not financial numbers. Engage your people. Enable them. But have the directives right. Have a forum for discussion. For every decision you make, convince your team that you are making the decision after consultation with them, hearing everyone out. But at the end of the day, those to deliver, you delegate the authority to them. You have to energize them, even through a lot of activities. As said, I pride myself into working with this organization, is that, this is a family-run business, but I do have my fair share and my opportunities here. I change my roles after discussions. If you perform, you can grow with the organization. They provide the opportunity and the platform to groom you. So in my past life, as I said, I reviewed all these HR policies, and I have to say that, because I was doing 2 jobs at that time, and a lot of my times actually I put on, human resources areas. Not because legal is not important, because we are sort of like, running in Hong Kong, and we don't have many, mergers and acquisitions projects. So in the legal sphere, actually, for our organization, apart from corporate governance, you are reviewing leases from time to time, but those are not, the main risk areas that the company is facing. You have to build a centric force. I have to say, I like fashion. And my company gives me this opportunity as well. I'm a lawyer, right? I was, at that time, in charge of the human resources division, and they say, Bella, why don't you just engage an interior, fashion designer into doing the uniform for the workforce? So I did it, and that makes me feel energized. So I was very into this project because I don't think that a company will give me this opportunity to enable me to see how the workforce of Hang Lung will be dressed in the uniform that you're engaged in such a project. So in 2013 we did it. And then we emphasize on people development. I trust that the hours are not the most important message here. It's what the training is all about. It's about if you are being a professional, your professional skills, your management skills. If you're an accountant, perhaps you don't do presentation well, how you can enable them to ensure that they talk in the public. Sorry, no offense, but that's what's happening in our legal field. Okay, I have to say in the lawyer field as well. We think too big about ourselves, all right? But there are lawyers here as well, right? And hence, you just have to think of the training to be provided to everyone to ensure that they could further improve and enhance themselves. And then we launched the Emerald Award for our frontline staff as well, to say that they provide the best customer service to our customers. And we actually did a presentation in Conrad Hotel in Hong Kong, engaging our tenants as well. So it was an occasion with 200 guests there, with our top management supporting and doing the press presentation. Social club in Hong Kong, we have the Dragon Boat Festival. This is just one of the happy occasions that I want to share with you. And actually, we have all our staff engaged in this, social club functions. And we divided into sports division, family division. We have got another division doing the annual dinner, which is a big event for the organization. Environment and society. Those are the buildings we have for our organizations. As said, there are issues. You look at this beautiful building. They are made up of glass panels. And I'm not going to tell you any lies here. Sometimes you face water leakage issues. So how can you handle that when you have got so many glass panels installed there to ensure that you have got an operation which could be up and running without destroying the tenants' goods or facilities? So these are the challenges we're facing. So if you are beautiful, sometimes it's very difficult to maintain as well. That's what I learned, from this lesson. And there are, things that our stakeholders will care for. And of course, when we build this building, we have to ensure that we are using local materials as well. And then, we have to install all these maintenance systems to ensure that, we have the facilities, the building management system, the BMS, that could serve, this building for the next 50 years to come. It's a very sophisticated system, I have to say. For the economy to grow, this is going to have a certain impact to the society and a certain impact to the environment as well. So we have to make very logical decisions here. We have to know that, if we have to use the natural resources of the environment, how tactful should we use it? And how tactful should we monitor that? As said, to start with any project, we do an impact analysis. And we are getting LEED gold certificates as well, starting from 2007 for some of our new buildings. And for some of our old buildings, we got it qualified after certain improvement. Take, for example, the one in Shanghai for Plaza 66. And these graphs, without reading the numbers, don't think that graphs going down is not a good thing, because this is the reduction consumption level of energy of our operations, talking about electricity intensity and water intensity. The last 5 years, we set a baseline case of an 18% reduction. Next 5 years, hands on our heart, we can only do 12%. Why? Because the chillers that we have to change in Hong Kong, they have been changed. For the new buildings, it's up and running with more occupancy. So you just have to do the math right. Create shared values. So even us as management, we have to, we enjoy actually participating in all these, CSR services. And I brought my daughter there as well. And she enjoyed. So this is engagement, not just, within the employee level, but with, sometimes with your family as well. And nurture the future generations. We do have a very sophisticated management trainee program for our organization. We believe that grooming the people from within could build a workforce that could serve your culture, that could understand your culture better. So even on websites, and we have got a Facebook website for the management trainee as well. So they share their experiences and they grow with the company. Transparency and disclosure. Don't be afraid to disclose numbers that may not look very good. The investors they look for those numbers. You can never hide from them. I could remember that, we got a call from one of the investors, checking out the population and the gender of the group. And there's sort of like a differential, which actually you need some explanation. That's fault on our part as well. But they look into the GRI, standards, and they look into the numbers and check you out. And take for example, we as a real estate company may not be doing that much on supply chain as compared to retail business, having, to go through all these, factory qualifications in Bangladesh. Then that's something that you just have to tell your stakeholders. There's nothing to hide. In the 100+ indicators in the GRI report, not many could be applicable to your organization. We disclose about 80. And I trust that we have already, pushed to such an extent that we actually, look into the other numbers disclosed by the other competitors as well. They are about 60-ish or so, 50-ish. We are already reaching the number of 80. And I think that's enough. I don't think that we could push any further because a lot of those indicators may not apply to your company. And I think, GRI actually, they are looking into that as well. So trust is very critical. As I said, if you're trying to hide something from your investors, they will remember. Disclosure is not a one-off action. Talking about the energy efficiency I talk about is an ongoing process. So those numbers actually have a meaning behind your business. And you just have to explain the rationale clearly to your investors as well. And to the extent possible, set 3-year to 5-year plan to monitor those performance from an economic, social, and governance perspective. So as we said, this is a never-ending exercise, hence the circle. And you have to prioritize your gaps and increase the awareness on sustainability. Fill in the gaps again, do the process improvement. And in this, exercise of identify the gaps, I have to tell you, it's not just from within. It's from the external stakeholders as well. We do have forums with the external stakeholders. In this forum, of course, it's more one-way communication. But we do small groups. So those people are not within our organization, not just within our organizations. They are actually, division heads from different departments. There are NGOs. There are our competitors. There are people who do very well in sustainability. There are people who are learning as well. And there are, advisors and consultants as well. So we share our experience in doing sustainability. And you heard a lot of good stuff, in that exercise. That's familiar. That's the matrix we're talking about. Prioritize your gaps. Think what is important to the organization. For us, integrity is very important, so it ranks, very up there in the graph. In that performance chart, actually, economics, dollar sign, is within, is one of the matrices as well. So when you do this exercise and engaging your staff into discussing what are the priorities of your company, set the priorities with very clear definitions. That is my advice. Because you grab all the management in the room and said that, what do you think is the highest priority within your organization? They will all say it's financials. So it doesn't make any sense, right? So the matrix will always be financial performance of the company. But that may not be the most important and significant element in your sustainability journey. Asset, data integrity. You cannot trick your investors into these data. When you tell a lie, you can never cover it with another lie, and on and on and on and on. So you just have to tell people about where you start. Take for example, in 2012, we don't have a very systematic system into collecting data from the maintenance side. We just have to be honest to ourselves. We just have to set 5-year plan to ensure that we could deliver in the next 5 years. We set a very high standard on supply chain. At the end of the day, we could not make it. So we just have to explain ourselves out. Why you could not make it? Is that very important in your organization? What are the risks involved here if you could not deliver? Internal awareness. We will be doing better in China, I hope. In education is very important. So we have already planned that after we issue our sustainability report, we'll just go to have our management buy in to this concept. And Chhoa is very engaging. And Chhoa what they understand you're talking about. Sometimes, being too technical, people don't understand you. That's always what I question my team. Because, on the technical side, a lot of engineers, actually, they are only speaking to themselves and for the IT people as well. So how to make your deliverables known is actually an art. Gauge their support. Oh, that's a very smiley face from my boss, Philip. He's visiting all these frontline people in Hangzhou. And so you just have to, ensure that you are building a relationship with your staff as well. Sustainability is about internal engagement and external engagement. It's about managing your business today and managing your business in the future. Deliverables may not be very apparent in your today's financial performance. I trust that your management has to understand that there are certain things that could have a brighter future and a brighter goal if you invest now. It involves investment as well. So put that in the budget. Tell them about the business case. Don't talk fakely about sustainability without knowing your business case, because you need to convince them. So this is the last page of the messages to bring home. Sustainability covers so many aspects. At the end of the day, it's about the leadership and engagement. It's about how well you communicate to your staff, how well you organize the whole sustainability structure in order to let your staff deliver. It's a never-ending journey. There are gaps to fill. Don't be disappointed. If you are doing sustainability like me, you have to remain humble. Talk to your colleagues with a smile. They don't work for you. Why should I give you the data, as I said? So you have to learn from the process. They are the experts. I'm doing general management. How can I convince my colleagues into collaborating and cooperating with me into making this work? High performance, which is today's topic, is not about short-term profits. It's about the positive impacts you bring to the society, to your staff, to the people beside you, to the community as a whole. So just don't measure this with profit, with dollar sign. Because a good company knows that sustainability is the future. It's the global trend that no one can ignore. And hence, I finish my today's presentation. Thank you.